I'll wait for the recording sign to come on. It's always a little bit delayed for me. There we go. Perfect. So we are recording, just so you're all aware. So if you don't want to be seen on camera, then stay off camera. We'll say that. I don't have a choice in the matter, and neither do any of the other speakers. They have to have their faces on show. We got someone in from Singapore. Good evening, Kimberly. Let's see how long you can stay on for before you got to go to sleep. And yeah, you're welcome for yesterday. That's absolutely fine. So yes, welcome everyone to this. It's the second episode of the SMB workshop series. Don't worry if you weren't here for episode 1. It's not like a continuation. No spoilers or anything like that. It's a completely different kind of set of content. But the first episode of this series, if you want to call it an episode, is available on the same website that you registered for this workshop on. And you can also see a previous Power Platform workshop as well. So feel free to check those out. Some great content in there also, and we're going to continue these workshops moving forward. We have on the 16th of June one focused around Dynamics 365 sales. We are continuing these workshops. We've got some great speakers here today. Everyone will introduce themselves, I'm sure, when it comes to their sections. But we really have got a great lineup of the best of the best of the best today. So we've got some great people from Ingram Micro Cloud. We have Craig Kreskus will be joining us from Microsoft as well. We have Rob Pope and Mary Thompson from Bamboo Cloud, and then also Andrew King from WebSam. So we have some amazing speakers, and they've got their specific content that they'll be covering for you today. So when we look at what we're actually going to be covering off today, we're going to take a look at what the opportunity is for Business Central and the SMB market in particular. We're going to be taking a look at how you as a Microsoft partner can improve your value to your end customers. We're going to be taking a look at Business Central and Microsoft 365 and the Better Together story there. We'll be handing over to Ed Smith and Scott Orange to talk around that. We also have Ingram Micro's Business Central grant program for our partners. So we'll be handing over to Rob Pope to talk more about that as well. And then we have Business Central for specific sectors and lines of business. So we have, again, great speakers from WebSam Solutions and also Bamboo Cloud. And then we're going to finish off with a bit of a roundtable discussion where we'd like everyone to get engaged. So please put your questions and everything in the question box, because we want some good topics of discussion for the end. So do feel free to put in as many as you like. So we're going to take a look at the worldwide SMB market to begin with. So there are 78 million SMB organizations worldwide, and that doesn't include organizations with just one employee either. So the SMB market is absolutely huge. And the SMB SaaS market opportunity around $17 billion to capitalize on. And actually a really key statistic that I found today when actually putting this together, 50 million new starter organizations are launched each year globally. So that number is going to continue to grow, and the opportunity is going to continue to grow as well. And actually for those 50 million startup companies, a solution like Business Central, we want to encourage as many organizations as possible to not only use a solution that's going to enable them to grow, but also grow with them. Nothing does that better than Dynamics 365. So just really want to highlight the size of the opportunity, and then just looking at specific markets. And I'm only going to call out 3 because we have that many people from different markets all over the world. But I just wanted to bring it a little bit more localized so you can actually see some of the opportunity that may be in your market as well. So in the US, 28.8 million SMBs. They actually represent 99.7% of all businesses in the US. That's a mistake right there, but it is in the US. That's supposed to be. And also the CRM and ERP market. That's also US as well. But $52.64 billion market for CRM in the US, and then $66.38 billion market for ERP as well. So the market is absolutely huge. And as you can see, the one thing, and you're going to see this very similar now in the UK, representing about 99% of all businesses are SMBs. And actually in the UK, 96% of all those businesses have less than 10 employees. So SMB really is a huge opportunity. There's over 6 million SMBs in the UK, and that represents just so you know, the term SMB is from 1 to 250 seat organizations. So, absolutely huge opportunity. And again, just putting in the startup information there, around on average about 350 new startups each year in the UK. And again, just to highlight the CRM market, total addressable market around $2 billion, ERP about $2.5 billion. We also have the UAE that I just wanted to highlight as well. I know that we had a number of registrations from folks in the UAE, so welcome everyone. But around 400,000 SMEs that are based in the UAE as well, and they represent around 60% of the non-oil economy. So they represent a huge amount of the economy in the UAE. Huge total addressable market as well, 250 million around CRM, 300 million around the ERP market. And again, keep in mind the amount of startup organizations that there are every year. And as well, keep in mind that only 1% of Microsoft 365 users today use Dynamics 365. So again, this market, this opportunity is absolutely huge. That gap needs to be closed. And the 99% that we're talking about there, they need better CRM and ERP solutions, and they are looking. We're seeing it more and more now, organizations outgrowing their ERP solutions. And they do say a bad ERP system is one that you're going to outgrow within 10 years. So if you are using a bad one, you're essentially saying you're not going to grow. So you want to make sure that you're using something good. It's going to help you grow, and it's going to grow with you as well. So there is an absolutely huge opportunity when it comes to this. And just to highlight the global opportunity for CRM and ERP, $97 billion market for ERP and $80 billion market for CRM. So again, this is a huge space that we're working in here. And just to highlight the Business Central momentum in all of this, there's now over 2,700 partners transacting Business Central. There's over 1,400 solutions for Business Central in AppSource. There's around over 15,000 customers using Business Central as well. And this is growing all the time. We are seeing extremely fast growth when it comes to Business Central, Ingram Micro Cloud alone, let alone when you look at it at a global perspective for Microsoft. So the momentum is huge. So now's the time to hop on board. And when we talk about what's available to help you grow, I won't talk too much into these, but there's a lot of resources and tools out there. So including our Dynamics Accelerate program, our Dynamics Angels program as well, enabling more Microsoft partners to start transacting Business Central, and Dynamics 365 really helping you add this value to your end customers. Microsoft Learn, there's exactly 273 Business Central focused learning paths today. This continues to grow. They're continuing to add more things here, and as you can see, little joke in there, Scott Orange has only done about 254 of them, so you've still got some work to do on Microsoft Learn. Also, when it comes to the new partner competencies and advanced specializations, this really highlights the investment that Microsoft are putting into more Business Central, more the SMB market, and actually over 230 plus partners in the first 3 months actually attained the new small and mid-market cloud for business applications competency. So it shows us a lot of very competent partners out there that transact in Business Central, and this is continuing to grow as you saw on previous slides. And then there's the 2 new advanced specializations as well, so you can really differentiate yourself as a partner and demonstrate your expertise through the low-code app development competency, and then also the small and mid-sized business management, advanced specialization as well. So it just really highlights the investment. There's a lot more out there to help you attain your, more competence in Business Central and how much you can offer to your customers. And actually, a lot of this that we find is in our business applications partner teams community. So if you are an Ingram partner and you're not currently part of the Teams community, please do let me know. Feel free to drop me an email if you want to be part of this. This is where we're dropping in, latest updates, latest news, events, there's videos. If there's any workshops or anything like that coming up, we're posting in there. There's a really great file storage area for things like licensing guides, release wave information, pitch decks, more pre-sale support, marketing. all sorts in there, as well as really useful websites. So the one that's actually highlighted there, the Transform Dynamics 365 partner website, probably the best Dynamics partner website available, with a lot of content, collateral, resources, all sorts in there for you to check out. And they actually have those for Power Platform, Modern Work, and Azure as well. And all those are available in our Teams community. So as you know, as mentioned on the previous slide, there's a lot of resources and tools available, and we put a lot of those into this Teams community so that you can easily access them all in one place. So I only wanted to do a brief bit to begin with, really highlight the opportunity and the market that's available before handing over to Ed and Scott to really go into the nitty-gritty of Microsoft 365 and Business Central and the Better Together story. Now I can actually see a question came in from Caitlin, so let's just have a look at that, and then I will hand over to you, Ed. That's a really good question, and it's a really good question because I don't know the answer. It's one that's been put out there from Microsoft, so it could be. My thought process is it would be full users. I don't think they would use people trialing it and testing it as a statistic for them. Because in a few months' time they might have to reduce the number. But yeah, I think I would say that's full users, just from the context that it was delivered in. Cool. I am going to leave it there then, and Scott, Ed, over to you guys.
Super, thanks, Matt. I did manage to get myself off mute for a change this time, having I think I only failed 3 times already during this meeting, so I'll try and improve as we go through. Somebody just shout and let me know that you can see a screen, please.
Can indeed.
You're good. I'm kind of creeping in on the side. We're good. Yeah.
That's great, Scott. Given that you've apparently done 254 of the Microsoft Learn programs, I'm just going to wait for the difficult questions and then refer to you if that's okay.
You guys are always trying to set me up. Always trying to set me up.
Nice comment there from Rob. It's billing users, those paying for a subscription, so considered customers. So super. I guess by way of introductions, my name's Ed Smith. I'm a Dynamics solution architect working for Ingram Micro based out of the UK. So I'll say good afternoon from the UK to wherever you guys are in the rest of the world. And Scott.
Hi, folks. Scott Orange. I'm a solution sales specialist for Microsoft Dynamics and the Power Platform. I cover the whole United States, but I'm also a big contributor to the Teams channel that we have here, the community. So I tend to respond to a lot of questions for our global partners as well. Also an enthusiast when it comes to the Power Platform. Ed is well ahead of me when it comes to Business Central, but it makes for a nice interplay, I think.
Absolutely. So as we go through the sessions today, I think as Matt said earlier on, please do keep dropping your questions into the chat. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. So in part 1, Scott and I kind of did, I guess, a bit of a double act around business. I don't know if Derek is saying yes because Scott's on the call there, or yes, I'm going to ask some really difficult questions specifically for Scott because that would be perfect, Derek. I think in the first section, Scott and I kind of did a bit of a double act, I guess, around CRM and Business Central integration. Given I put the slide deck together, I'll try this a little bit more from the BC side of things. We're not going to recap too much on what happened in the first session, as Matt said. Always well worth starting with a quote from Satya, because I think it's one of the things that really resonates. There's been a huge amount of digital transformation, and from when this came out, wasn't very long ago, in the last couple of months, I think we've all seen. I don't know who got the big sigh in the background there, whether that was not another quote that Ed's coming out with. I think the speed of change, the pace of user adoption, a lot driven by COVID, obviously, and remote working. So part of the focus on this session that we're going to do, just going to cover off in the next 20 minutes or so, we'll focus a little bit on M365 integration with Business Central, but Business Central along with the wider world of Dynamics. Later on this afternoon, we've got product specialization coming in from colleagues at Websan and Bamboo Cloud. In this section, really just want to have a couple of minutes before we jump into Business Central, just to, the graphics on that didn't work tremendously well. I'll be very disappointed if the graphics almost worked a little bit better. Shamelessly stolen and plagiarized from Microsoft, because they pay gazillions of dollars to their marketing specialists to put these presentations together. Wanted to use this just as a quick way of highlighting in terms of infrastructure, architecture, so IaaS, platform as a service, what we can offer in terms of SaaS for applications. Certainly one of the reasons that I chose to join a Microsoft direct partner some 5 or 6 years ago, moving away from SAP, was looking at the future of the applications, the infrastructure, and where I felt things were going to be impactful in the world of business going forwards.
لا يلدغ المؤمن من نفس لغايه ما نعرف بقى مين الجاني ولا.
I don't know if I've got the ability to mute anyone, but Kareem, I don't think that was a question directed at me. If not, I'll assume that I can just carry on there. So in terms of infrastructure and architecture, I just want to use this a little bit as positioning and then move it into M365 and D365. So for the Microsoft Cloud, building on Azure, we've got development platforms with GitHub and I'm going to say a range of applications and opportunities, including LinkedIn, for instance. And it's that security in the building blocks that we can bring into the interaction between M365, Dynamics, and Power Platform is very deliberately in there within Ingram Micro, where we position BizApps as a business unit, incorporates M365, Dynamics, and Power Platform. We're looking at the front-end user experience and how users interact with systems and what they naturally do on a day-to-day basis. And most of us, frankly, spend an awful lot of our lives in Outlook and in Teams. It's the method of communication where Teams, in my opinion, is now starting to overtake Outlook for that user interface, that single place to be where we can manage all of our applications and our communications. And I'm certainly not going to knock the competition at this stage. This was a Microsoft presentation, so there was a little bit more kind of bite in the background. But what we commonly find when we're going up against competitive products is that we've got great applications that we're competing with. The applications themselves, without doubt, could be best of breed. The interaction and the collaboration between them is where I think Microsoft absolutely is the outstanding vendor, especially in the small to medium enterprise marketplace, having the ability to deliver that end-to-end experience from the moment that the user switches on the laptop, frankly powered on Windows, into Outlook, using Teams, interfacing and integrating with the back office systems, and having that ability to collaborate, communicate, drill down into data. And Power Platform is absolutely playing a significant part in that right now. So I guess a couple of years ago, in fact, we did a presentation, we did a session on Power Platform not very long ago. I think Matt came out with the stats that over the last 2 years within Ingram Micro, we'd grown our Power Platform sales by around 2,000%. Without us really trying very hard, because it was a fairly new adoption. So that was interest from the market driving acquisition through Ingram. What we've got globally now with Ingram is the Power Platform Accelerate program, hand in hand with the Dynamics Accelerate program. I can see that Peter's joined the call. We were talking last week with a UK-based partner about Power Platform and enhancements and delivery. And I think the flexibility and development that goes into that is driving that user experience forwards. So thinking about the business applications and how these things hang together and what we can do with this. Again, just for the sake of a bigger picture, if anybody wasn't available to join us on the first call, And particularly because I shamelessly stole this from Microsoft because it's a really well put together slide. In terms of that digital feedback loop, of course, it's about engaging customers. Without the customers, we're not going to get a huge amount of interaction. We're not going to drive revenue. And I guess I'm one of those slightly cynical people. The first time I heard phrases like empowering people, it sounds a little bit too marketing for me. But then when we're into the processes and the platform and how we can interact, when we talk about empowering people, it's enabling them to do their job in the best way that they can do, add best value to the organization. And Business Central is absolutely one of my favorite products. From the point that you log in, you've got a landing page with your most important activities and all your reminders, the idea being to help people drive straight into that value-added activity, especially in the first couple of hours in the day when people are at their most alert, to be able to get straight into those processes. And thinking about optimizing operations, Scott will know this very well from our pre-sales engagements. I do morph into one of those very irritating pre-sales people when we say, what's going to drive you forward in terms of adopting this project? Why do you want to buy it? And the answer, increased efficiency, is just not good enough. That's when I become even more irritating than usual and start saying, why? What do you want to do? What measures are we going to put in place so that 6 months after you've gone live, when we're having this conversation with your account manager, what are we measuring? So first time I saw this kind of language, I thought, hey, it's a bit marketing spin really, isn't it? But frankly, it does absolutely drive into the essence of that dynamic stack and the capability, with the opportunity to build that data and intelligence with the wraparound of all of the applications in the Dynamics ecosystem. The reason that we've got data and intelligence bang in the middle of that sphere now is that capturing all the data from these applications is great for transactional processes. It's even better when you can use it for business intelligence, adding value. And when we think about areas like Power Platform, this is adding value with applications that make each business unique. When we look at Business Central later on, it's very much SME, out of the box, with configuration options. The configuration and the value add is what makes every organization unique. And that data resides in the Dataverse. We've got access to it with our applications, with our reporting. And across the bottom of the slide there, the Power Platform is right across the piece. I really wanted to use that a little bit just for positioning in terms of product. In terms of the markets, obviously Matt and I have got a bit of an overlap in terms of the reason that we're doing this, and with something around, what, 67, 68 people on the call, quite aware that we potentially got prospects, customers, partners, and prospective partners as well. So organizations that might already be working in the SMB marketplace, potentially already M365 resellers, and trying to answer the question, what can we do for our SMB customers? How can we work better? A lot of that is now focused on remote work whilst maintaining security. I know I used to be an IT manager, and the thought of people working remotely, bring your own device, low code and no code developers, that was all a little bit scary, frankly, because how do I maintain control? So how do we keep a grip on what we're doing, and how do we reduce costs as well? And that might be keeping the cost base level whilst increasing revenue. Ideally, that's why we want to see our customers and our partners grow, increase revenue without having to keep on investing all of the time, as opposed to removing people from an organization. So typically, the key questions in the SMB marketplace, what can we do to help empower that with M365? Absolutely better tools for remote work, better security, and an opportunity to reduce costs. A self-answering set of questions, if ever there were any. The opportunity for M365 resellers moving into the Dynamics space is realistically to differentiate your business. When we talk about adding customer stickiness, the retention rate for customers, attacking that churn rate. If you've got a customer on M365, there's a chance they can move to another partner who does a very similar activity. this focus is around adding value to that activity, building customer loyalty. I guess a decade ago, we try and build stickiness by doing loads of bespoke work and making it very difficult for people to move away. The tools at our disposal now means that we can be a lot more flexible and agile. So retaining customers is based on quality and loyalty, and how do we add that value and build it in, and of course grow new revenue opportunities. So if on the call we've got M365 partners who are interested in moving into the world of Dynamics, please do reach out to us within the Ingram geography, or reach out to Scott or Matt or myself, and we can certainly align the resources to dive a little bit deeper into the commercial opportunities. But to highlight that, I just wanted to bring this slide up. And this is probably that first point is the most impactful. Around 1% penetration globally into the M365 customer base with Dynamics 365. So if we take the total number of seats, compare it to the total number of seats for Dynamics within that marketplace, it's a tremendous opportunity. So the total addressable market, if we view it that way, are those organizations that already work with Microsoft. They've already bought through a partner, perhaps bought through Ingram. And this is absolutely one of the key metrics that we use with Ingram in partnership with our modern workplace partners. And that's why BizApps encompasses business applications, modern workplace, Power Platform, and wraps into IaaS and PaaS, for instance. What we're seeing, and less than 1% sounds like a shocking number, frankly, every time I see it, but what we're seeing is that's a massive number. Greater than 35% year-on-year growth, key attraction for M365 partners, increase your revenues by 84% on average revenue per user, and even if you've got existing Azure, we'd expect to double that. That's about as salesy as I'm going to get all the way through. I'm only going to leave this example on the screen for a second. I can see Scott looking at me because he knows I'd much rather get into product than do the commercial side of things. Just as an example, we can work this through. If you've got 200 seats already on M365, if you can add 20 Business Central premium users, if that addresses a business challenge for finance, sales order processing, purchase order processing, and inventory management, for instance, even if some of those licenses are lower level team members, and that's a great introduction, I guess, just to some of the licensing. We've got $8 licenses for people who need to access data, get reports, and do some light transactional processing. So we've got some flexibility here to say, really, just pay for what you need. The incremental value opportunity, and of course that repeats year after year, is absolutely significant. I know Rob Pope is on the call from Bamboom. I think Rob has some great metrics comparing earning potential from M365 versus earning potential from M365 with Dynamics. I think it was a factor of 8. I've not got Rob's details in front of me, and Robbie, was that the right number, Rob? Yeah, kind of factor right. Of 8. If we can build on that existing base, build into BizApps, and add that kind of value, there's tremendous opportunity. So now I am actually going to move on to the product once I've got through this, because the work that Scott and I have been looking at, really, we focused on Business Central and Sales Pro within this series of workshops, thinking about M365 and where that comes in, and it's already a massive, thanks Rob, yes, doubles Azure as well. So even where you've got that existing Azure, we see those incremental benefits and incremental revenue for partners, adding value to customers at the same time. The act now, if we have got partners on the call, if you're not aware of Cloud Ascent, then really you should be. It's a great source of data with suggestions about which of your customers might be suitable for at least engaging in a conversation around business applications and where we might go with that. And again, if Cloud Ascent is something that you're not aware of, Mr. Batterby, the biggest data geek I have ever worked with, is absolutely an expert on this. This is data that's garnered by Microsoft, comes through the partner channel, and we can certainly help you in how to address your customer market and how we can assist in moving things forward. Briefly to highlight that on the partner-to-partner channel piece, I'll skip past that slide. This one's a little bit more interesting in terms of how we as Ingram Micro work with our partners, work with our end customers, and why we've got experts on the call today. In terms of partner engagement, it's always the partner's customers. We don't want to go direct to customers. That relationship exists between the partner and the customer because you're the trusted advisor, the trusted company if you're already doing networking in M365, for instance. Ingram's role as an indirect provider is to facilitate that route to market, offer as much assistance as we can do, and introduce Dynamics 365 expert partners. So I know we've got Peter from Azomba, we've got the guys from Bamboo Cloud, we've got Andy from Websan on the call, all doing sessions. Like, I think, Peter, you might not be doing a session, or I might have just given you a bit of a heart attack by suggesting you could be doing a session today. These are expert partners globally who deliver applications and services. So in terms of who does what, for Ingram Micro, we recruit, we market, we understand the market and the opportunity. For the modern workplace partner, identifying opportunities within your customer base or lead generation, and working with our elite solution providers or elite service providers. I seem to have morphed into calling them solution providers. These are the global experts, typically in the top 1% of Microsoft partners globally, to work with you on implementations. I will finally get onto some product. I probably took twice as long to say all of that as I intended to. It was intended to be a little bit of a recap on session 1 for those of you that couldn't make it, just a little bit of positioning and thinking a little bit more about product. I'm going to touch on some of the most common aspects of the products in terms of M365 integration. This was a snapshot, I think, just from my demo environment when I was working through this the other day, because administration is through office.com. The reason I've just picked out some areas there, you can see within that portal, we've got Dynamics 365 and the familiar tools that we bring into play from M365. I'm not going to dwell too much on things like Excel and Word. We can pick up on those within Business Central. Excel to import data, export list, manipulate data and re-import it, whilst adhering to any validation rules and structure that we built into Business Central. So it's not some ad hoc, hey, I'll drop this data out, type in some garbage and throw it back at my system. We really don't allow you to do that. I was exploring an opportunity last week with one of my colleagues to say, can I edit data straight into the Dataverse using Excel? And I was like, yeah, even if you could do, why would you? Just please don't. I really don't want you to go down that route. But the tools at our disposal allow us to use Word for document layouts, for instance, within Business Central. So we don't need to be rocket scientists to do document layouts. And thinking about probably the most common interface between a user and Business Central, even though I think this is kind of being overtaken by Teams right now, it's Outlook. Great integration between Outlook and Business Central, and this really genuinely wasn't me being lazy. I got some slides to back this up, but what I did do was choose, if I can get this right, to revert to Microsoft with a very quick video. It's only 2 minutes long. I'm going to play this without the sound on, just whilst I guess talk over it as it comes through, because the integration between Outlook and Business Central is absolutely designed. I should have paused that. One of the slightly irritating things about this is the Microsoft tendency to go, here's some product and here's a person, and here's a product and here's a person. So I'll try and talk my way through this as we go through. What you can see on the screen there is Outlook integrated with Business Central, of course. The demo data that comes in a Business Central environment, that I guess the people on the call, you've got the right to spin up a demo environment and play around with this. It's based around Office furniture. And I just want to use this as an example because sat within Business Central, we've actually got customers, vendors, and contacts. Dealing with those customers and with those contacts, we've also got quite a decent element of CRM functionality. Tends to be a little bit overlooked in Business Central, but it does give us access to contacts, emails, phone numbers, which means that when we're dealing with inbound emails through Outlook, we can compare that inbound email address against the contacts in Business Central and see if we already know these contacts and which organizations they belong to. So just to reiterate, we've got that administrative piece. And in this example, he says, I knew I was going to just skip straight past on the pause. On this example, if we sent quotations out to a contact for products from Business Central, or we receive an inbound email that suggests that somebody wants to buy product from us, there's an AI engine running in the background. And again, some of these phrases, when I heard a few years ago, it's like, yeah, AI engine running in the background. Really, how good is this? It's good enough to be able to interpret an email, try and interpret what is being suggested. And in this case, somebody is needing a quote for furniture, and we've got descriptions for 2 products. The AI engine searches Business Central for the descriptions and suggests back to us, look, it kind of sounds like these guys are talking about these 2 product lines. And if that's the case, I'm going to try and save you some activity rather than going on looking for products in Business Central, copying and pasting an AI engine with BC suggesting back to us, this is maybe what you want to quote for. Simply even having that ability and drilling down into the customer insights at this stage, we know somebody wants to buy some product from us. Do we want to sell it to them? Well, probably. If we've got the product, we'd like to sell it. Before we do, wouldn't it be great to get that 360-degree view of the customer? Because they might owe us some money, they might be a bad debtor, we might have a somewhat challenging relationship in terms of our cash-to-cash transaction. Without leaving Outlook, we can drill into customer insights, we've got our suggested lines, and we can react to that and generate a quote, a sales order, an invoice, and we can simply pop that out, send it by email. We've got the document view, so we can see any attachment that goes out on that. It doesn't just exist within Outlook. Of course, what we're doing is transacting Business Central from a different user interface. So we will be pushing that data back into Business Central. And if this isn't somebody that Business Central knows, without, again, I don't want to do Control-C, Control-V, go into BC, come back, do a load of updates. I couldn't even get my microphone off mute before, so my typing capabilities would suggest I'm bound to make mistakes. Having the opportunity to react to demand, react to inquiries, transact that entirely through Outlook and push that back into Business Central effectively gives us a new user interface. What does it mean for our users? This is driving efficiency and capability. It drives user adoption of systems. So I will escape out of that. We find it drives that user adoption of systems because everybody's used to working in Outlook, Excel, and Word. So the familiarity of the tools transformed into a business process. I did have some backup slides just in case YouTube wasn't going to play today. In terms of the setup, for assisted setup from BC to integrate your business inbox in Outlook, it's a guided assistance, tremendous documentation. One of the great things about BC is that a lot of the configuration is kind of pre-canned and pre-planned, and we'll touch on a lot of that on the kind of implementation presentations later on today. Moving on from Outlook, if you're anything like me, I'll try and pick up on that question a little bit later on, Caitlin. I'm aware I'm probably already speaking way over time anyway. Taking over from Outlook, if you're anything like me, I spend half of my life in Teams right now because it's a fantastic communication tool. Working within Teams, fairly recent release, we've already had customer engagement exposed into Teams for quite a while. Business Central has played catch up. We've now got Business Central exposed into Teams. Again, first time I heard it, I thought, okay, bit of a cool new user interface, looks a little bit cleaner. What it actually means is that we can work in Teams to get to customer data, vendor data, item data in this case. You can be as simple as you like from the web interface in BC, copy the URL, drop it into Teams, and it pops it out into an application window, which means we can actually be editing, transacting, maintaining the product structure, the Business Central data, whilst we're still sat within Teams. We don't have to keep toggling between applications. I'm going to go fairly quickly through this. Shamelessly, this is the example that I used on the last workshop, because there's only so many examples that I can pull out of the hat in terms of integration. I do want to be able to show you this because this is Teams linked to Business Central. The scenario here is realistically, I want to book a meeting with a customer. I can manage my calendar and my email and my biz apps from within Teams as that user interface. This is where efficiency really stems from. Pinning Business Central into the search bar. If I'm searching for Megan Bond, and you can tell in the world of demo data, everyone looks tremendously happy and successful because they all are. If you have a trial environment, you'll see exactly the same kind of data. Megan Bond is a contact. I can see which organization Megan works for, and I can get that 360-degree view of the business without having to leave Teams. So I've already got that application power at my fingertips. A next example is just introducing Power Platform to create a flow, and the flow that we're looking for here, this really relates to customization in Business Central. I try to generate, customize, develop a rental model with NAV as it was a few years ago, and it was a lot of hard work to do that configuration to compete with best of breed applications at the time. Using a fairly simple workflow example here, we're looking to rent an asset out, a piece of kit, inform our colleagues of what we've done, generate a sales order or react to a sales order, book some diaries, and automate that process. So using Power Automate, we're going to react to a booking, create an event in a calendar for the asset, and post a message into Teams. I'm not going to go through the entire mechanism on this. Suffice to say, from the sales order process, we change some selling dates to rental dates. When the booking goes through, then it's a piece of cake to post a message into a Teams channel to update Outlook. So update the calendar for that asset. But when the asset comes back into my site, I really want to book that back into my inventory stores so that I've got that available to rent out again. Reacting to that, I was really excited around Powerapps. I've been excited about Powerapps for ages, and Scott's the resident genius on this as a functional Powerapps consultant. I doff my cap to you, sir. Business Central's played catch up a little bit. We've had this available for multiple data sources, but having access to all the data in Business Central perhaps was playing catch up. We've now got that integration, that interface, and the opportunity. This is a very simple example. If any of you have worked with Power Platform and Power Apps, we simply pointed a Power App at the data source, and it spins its own application up. It tries to drive the, I think CRUD is the acronym, create, read, update, and delete. So by simply saying, look, here's a data source, go figure, we get a selection list, we can drill down into the assets, and we can start to transact. Adding a button to mark as received onto that process to book that back into stock, we can use the same workflows with a slight variant as we did when we were booking the asset out of stock. We're just reversing a process. We're going to take that booking out of a calendar or complete it, bring the asset back into inventory, and using a Power App, I think that's around $10 per user per month for somebody to use an application. So thinking about the efficiency, the integration, the time and effort that's saved, and a phrase that I've used for, I guess, a long time. I think I've been in IT for a very, very long time, adding value at the point of activity. If you can add that value with an end user, rather than just capturing some raw data and making that a transactional process that somebody has to manually key in later, great. For $10 per user per month, I'll give somebody a mobile phone and I'll get my assets booked back in on time, real-time visibility with accuracy. Thinking about the data, if you remember that really cool slide I had before, looked a bit hologram, and in the middle we got data and intelligence. I just want to bring in Power BI, the other aspect of the Power Platform that really, I guess for us as Ingram, sits in that M365 space. We've got access to the data. If I just drill in a little bit, entity definitions, rental return dates, rental lines with info, pointing Power BI at it, that's the kind of graph that I could generate because I am such a novice with Power BI. But having access to that data and the capability to turn that into something rather more useful as charts and graphs that we can drill down into, this is where we take business into the world of intelligence. It's not just data anymore. It was very purposefully defined as data and intelligence in the middle of that sphere with all the Dynamics applications wrapped around it. What do we do with the data to transform this into intelligence? And then thinking about the theme for today, what does that mean in the world of Business Central? Business Central has role-tailored clients. We've got specific landing pages. We're trying to tailor the experience for each user so that they get best value out of using the system, which in turn delivers best value to the organization that's paying for the licenses, frankly. We've got Power BI reports and selections. It's been significantly enhanced in terms of its validation and onboarding in the latest release. And we can bring Power BI reports onto a dashboard. Something I'll really briefly mention, we were talking about this with Rob over the last couple of weeks at Bamboo Cloud. We are working with Power Platform specialists, an organization that we both know, with a thought too. Where do we go with out-of-the-box reports? What's easy to configure? It doesn't have to be out of the box for an end customer, for a partner. Generating this kind of report and this kind of intelligence to make it easily accessible on Business Central is frankly pretty damn simple once you've got access to the data and understand the tools a little bit. On that note, I was ignoring any questions because I am aware that I have probably rattled on for about 15 minutes longer than I should have done. Absolutely happy to jump in and try and address any questions that are outstanding.
So Ed, one of the things that jumps out to me with this is that we really can't just start a conversation right at Business Central or Powerapps or something along those lines. In order to really highlight the value and that integration from the Microsoft 365 stack, it's important that our partners really start with that just kind of initial assessment. What are you purchasing today and how are you using it, right? Because if we're not using Teams appropriately or if Outlook's a complete mess, using those integrations might not necessarily solve anything. And so that's why starting these conversations off from really that point of what are you doing today and potentially adding more value with their current Microsoft subscriptions before then adding on a new solution and a new direction to help improve other business processes. We don't want to just throw an ERP system into a bad business to fix things. That's not going to work out. But when we can take a step back and really look at that big picture with the client or with the partner, it's going to help lead to that discussion about Business Central and the value there, and it's actually going to save time in the long run.
Absolutely agree, Scott. I think, especially having been in the world of IT for a long time, so many conversations have been started with, this is the IT solution, what's your problem? And that's never the right way to go. I think starting with what gives you pain and grief as an organization and where do you want to be? Mm-hmm. It's kind of similar with when we talk about Power Automate for processes. I do get some strange looks when I'm talking to some organizations. It's if you can write a process down, there's a really good chance we can automate it.
Sure. And
if you can't write a process down, it's not really a process, is it? It's a bit of guesswork. So trying to understand that roadmap, and I think one of the areas where I certainly get the most enjoyment, and I think we probably as Ingram and as our partners add the most value, is by being able to address this almost in bite-sized chunks. How do we go with minimum viable proposition and then get the phrase that gets used for that is time to value, isn't it? How soon can we get your guys adding value to an organization and then potentially build on it over time with those incremental chunks of value without having to work really hard? I think the traditional ERP approach where every implementation takes 18 months and frankly, after 6 months, your project manager and ours need a divorce and they never want to talk to each other ever again. Those
Well,
days are gone. And,
yeah, we also work with Microsoft. So 18 months from now, who knows what any of these names will be, right? That's just how it seems to roll with that continuous pace of innovation. It also means that we have some other things to keep up with along the way. But it's true, the time to value is a lot shorter. The other thing I like to bring up here, because people get excited about what's possible with this technology, is that if, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So if we don't understand what's going on, if our partners don't understand what's going on, we really can't put out a roadmap or show where they're going to be successful down the road.
Absolutely. I think it's, I do get quite challenging during pre-sales, purposefully so, and try to drive towards how are you going to measure me in 6 months? How do we measure our performance in terms of business improvement? Often that's a really challenging thing to measure or define from the outlet. We might be trying to plug the holes to stop the leaks in the boat to start with, and that's a big improvement. Where we need to be in the future, one of the reasons I wanted to highlight that ecosystem a little bit at the start was really, if anybody outgrows the world of Dynamics, frankly, I would be delighted, because you would have made so much money as a business to have actually outgrown, I think, what we can deliver within Dynamics. Then it's such a massive scope of applications. But the cool thing, in my opinion, it's got all the depth behind the breadth. So we can really get into deep business practice and processes.
Absolutely.
Matt, I'm relying on you to shout at me when I need to turn my mic back off.
Seems like a fantastic transition point, Ed. Yeah.
I'm absolutely aware that once I get into Business Central or anything business process, I can just talk and talk and talk. I'm not seeing too many questions coming in, or questions where I think Andrew and Rob are saying they're going to pick up on these a little bit later on. So
yeah, no, and that's fine. I mean, I know that whenever me and you have a 5-minute catch up, I need at least 2 hours clear in my diary, so it's fine. But I mean, yeah. So that's great content. Thank you very much, guys. I think what we'll do now, just looking at the time, I think if we say till the top of the hour, for a quick sort of 5-minute break. So go get yourselves a coffee, a tea, some food. I'm gonna have a yogurt because but yeah, have a little break, and we'll all meet back here in like 5 minutes, and then we'll kick things off with the next session.
Super. Catch you in a few minutes.
Thank you. welcome back, everyone. If you are back, of course. Okay. So I think now at this point, we're going to hand over to Mr. Pope, if he's back from his break.
Hi, Matt. I'm back from my break.
He's back from his break, so we're going to hand over to Mr. Pope. I will go quiet again. Over to you, Rob.
Hello. I didn't even have yogurt. Just give me 1 second. So I'm going to turn the video off. Actually, actually, I'll keep it on. Doesn't matter. So let me check. I can share. Can we see the screen?
Can indeed, yeah.
Cool. So good afternoon, morning, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Thank you very much for the invitation to talk today, Matthew and the Ingram team. My name is Robert Pope. I'm from Bamboo Cloud. We're one of the partners in the Ingram ecosystem and also in the marketplace. Some of you may know us previously as Cooper Perry IT. We've been around for a long time, over 170 years, really playing in the Business Central and what was NAV space. Today I'm going to talk to you for originally I think 15 minutes, but actually I think probably a little bit less than that, but I expect there might be some questions. What I'm really going to talk to you about is a problem that's probably common to many of you and something that ourselves and Ingram and Microsoft are looking to do about it. And really, I think looking at one of the questions that just came through on the chat, it was almost like it was timed for this. Today's session really is around helping you drink the Microsoft champagne and the Ingram Microcloud champagne. And that's really about helping you as organizations start to use Business Central for yourselves. And not only that, actually start to use Business Central for yourselves, but get the advantage of having it synced and integrated into the Ingram Cloud Marketplace, which basically is really around your billing, your subscriptions, your contract management, and all of the, for want of a better word, hassle that comes out of actually managing the transactions that you do with your customers, whether you do them from within the cloud marketplace or within your current accounting platform. Before I go into too much detail, I thought I'd just kind of cover off a couple of bits who we are. So very basically, or very briefly, we are the worldwide partner of the year, 2 years on the trot, winners and then finalists for Business Central. We sit in the inner circle for Dynamics. And we're really famous for our fixed price, fixed outcome deployments of Business Central. We fit in a certain space, which is really around helping organizations use Business Central straight out of the box in a very simplified fashion. Our approach isn't for everybody. Andrew from WebSound is on the call later today. His approach is kind of the black and white, or the complete opposite, or not quite opposite, but very different to ours. With regards to how they provide their solution. Our solution fits for particularly smaller organizations and also those that really just kind of want to use the system and have their business processes defined by the way the system's built, as opposed to necessarily needing it to fit into the way that they operate. Now, the other part of this obviously is we're also a Ingram Microcloud customer ourselves. We use Ingram's cloud marketplace platform to transact CSP. We're also in the cloud marketplace with our own services, our packs and pots, which is under the Dynamics Angels brand. And actually, as part of that, the whole aim and where we've been heading is really around this fixed price, fixed outcome solution. Our key aim, what we do and why we do what we do, is really to help organizations, any organization, to innovate and transform using the best of Microsoft's cloud. And to a certain extent, that includes us. And hopefully, for many of you who are Ingram partners on the call today, potentially yourselves as well. As I mentioned, we do all of this from a low-cost, fixed price, fixed outcome approach. So this is very much a pre-packaged, a bit like Lego bricks type offering, where we pull it all together and in effect say, kind of, this is how it works, this is how much it costs, this is what it will do, and crucially what it won't do. And it's designed specifically around that best practice approach. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on that in our session, the session that's later on this afternoon or morning, depending which part of the world you're in. But what I thought I'd touch on is really the piece that we have done. Obviously, Business Central, Ed's done a great job of just demonstrating and giving you an understanding of what Business Central does from a customer or end user perspective, as in the way that it's heavily embedded in Outlook and the rest of the Microsoft toolset, how it moves on that whole conversation about finance solutions. But when I look at your requirement as a Ingram partner, or actually as a partner who is transacting subscriptions, it's quite hard. Many finance solutions historically have been built for basically selling boxes. They're not built for selling recurring revenue, for subscriptions, for managing contracts on an ongoing basis, and crucially also to integrate into cloud marketplaces, into marketplaces where orders are maybe being put on, and then to be able to actually kind of set that whole thing up. So the key part, and I'm going to go through this in a bit more detail in a minute, is we have built what's called an extension. Business Central has a capability, and Ed touched on it again in his session earlier on, where you can build what are called extensions. These are components that are more verticalized, almost like ISV solutions. They sit in Microsoft's app source platform, and it's a bit like going to the App Store on your mobile phone. In effect, you buy Business Central, and then you can go buy a series of apps that then improve or make it do specific things. And what we have done is build an extension, an app, that bolts straight into Business Central and in effect connects the Ingram Market Cloud with Business Central and does all of that heavy lifting and all of that reconciliation with regards to how you connect your systems together, and also then drink the champagne. Use Business Central for your own use, understand how it works, where its benefits are. It also then helps you understand and help sell it and position it to your customer base within your own customer set. Now, to be honest, there isn't an awful lot to see. One of the things Matt said to me is, "Oh, can you show people the cloud marketplace integration?" Well, to be honest, not really. It's not really one of those things you can see. It's a black box. It basically takes an input and basically connects two systems together, and kind of the magic, to be honest, if I showed you, it's coding stuff. It's stuff I don't even understand, so me presenting it would be pretty hopeless. However, what is in this black box, and there was no money spent on this marketing, as you were about to say, but what is in this box is approximately, or up to about $5,000. Now that amount there is really something that we put forward and working with Ingram. In fact, Ingram have very much come to the fore with this to really provide a grant scheme to support the deployment of Business Central within Microsoft partners, within Ingram partners, and also then to put forward this as a contribution towards the setup and configuration of Business Central, also to the licenses of Business Central that you may need to use, and then obviously the integration into the cloud marketplace. Now, this is, as you can imagine, isn't a bottomless pit of money. It's something that we have got a number of places for, that we're keen to speak to partners who are interested. But obviously, this kind of really helps you accelerate your own use of Business Central, but also fundamentally delivers some real benefits to you as a partner. And actually, to put it into context, the reason why we did this is, as a partner, we've grown exponentially over the last couple of years, and our use of Cloud Marketplace has similarly accelerated. And as part of that acceleration, that's created a pain point within our own organization of being able to manage that billing, manage that reconciliation, to the point that it was costing us a good couple of days a month to, one, make sure it was correct. And to be honest, the bigger you get, the more complex it gets, and the more likely it is that potentially there's some mistakes. And also you maybe miss things with regards to things like contract ends or subscription ends, or not the right price point necessarily on some of the SKUs that go in or you bill out to your customers. It makes the whole thing quite a difficult process. So the extension we have built installs very, very quickly into Business Central. It uses the standard apps or standard extension components. It's something that is designed to be deployed into a new Business Central deployment. So part of this whole program, this IUR grant program, is to give you a brand new, fresh out of the box deployment of Business Central, built using our fixed price, fixed outcome packs, which are available in the Ingram Marketplace. And then in effect, we plug in this extension where we connect up the Cloud Marketplace and your Business Central deployment. I'll talk later, because I think I've got another session really talking about the competitive landscape, which is where I suspect most of you exist. I suspect many of you as partners are using platforms like Sage or QuickBooks in your own organization, a bit like a lot of SMBs. And a lot of the advantages that Ed talks about are there to be taken for yourself in your own business as you drink the champagne or eat the dog food, depending on what terminology you use in that scenario. But that installation is very, very quick. Obviously, we've got to do the build of Business Central. The setup is very quick. The key point then really is that this creates a sync. Now, the screens you're seeing here are the screens in Business Central. As I said, there's not an awful lot to see with regards to this black box and the way that it works. But what it allows us to do is to do that sync. So we can take an organization that has an existing Business Central deployment. However, there are caveats in that environment with regards to how it's been set up. So as I said at the beginning, our preference is to do a fresh implementation of Business Central, potentially take your data across, but make sure we start in the right way. So we're making sure we're mapping the right products together. But after that, it enables us to then sync customers, contacts, products, subscriptions between the Cloud Marketplace and Business Central. And as part of that, it's allowing that whole subscription creation, that the subscriptions can be created in Business Central if you want them to be. They can continue to be created in the Cloud Marketplace. So this is a synchronization. This isn't a master and slave environment. The two are intrinsically connected together. You can have contracts with different types of licenses. We can copy contracts. They can be monthly, quarterly, yearly. We can also include and incorporate other consumption services like Azure, particularly, which we know is a problem for many people. And we can create it so that Business Central can estimate the new invoice value so you can project that future revenue. Now, obviously, then what it's doing is reconciling that further down the line when the actuals come in. But it does help, particularly with things like cash flow and understanding your business position rather than kind of waiting till the end of each month and then having this kind of lump, a bit like we used to do. We knew that there was a lump coming, but we didn't quite know how big it was. This really helps us to handle that. We also cover off things like contracts that are set to renew and the keeping really on top of everything that we need from the way that we manage those contracts and manage actually also the customer service relationship that goes with them. So a huge amount of functionality, much of it probably more relevant to your accounts team. I'm conscious that it's quite likely that people on this call don't necessarily have to get involved in the nitty gritty of how all this works and how you plug it together and the kind of hair that gets pulled out and teeth grinded when the end of the month comes and it has to be reconciled. This kind of hoovers it all up and does a huge amount of that work and that is probably causing pain to your team at this point in time. So look at this. There is, broadly speaking, three things that you need to buy. And actually, this will give you a good example of where they are. This is actually our UK site. So I'll show you the kind of the components and then basically talk through and obviously the grant. And you can buy these components through the Ingram Marketplace. There is a license. Now, this is showing the UK list price licenses. You will have your own cost price. There's a way that we can, in effect, sell those licenses to you at your cost price so that you basically can, in effect, buy Business Central. A big part of that, which some of you may or may not be aware of, is in theory, you're not supposed to sell the licenses to yourself. It's part of the terms of the CSP contract, but we can provide them to you at your cost price. I'll drop another link in for those of you in the US. There is a US site that has got Canadian and US pricing on here for licensing. But broadly speaking, you need to buy the licenses per user per month. Premium license, nobody ever buys that. I'm not quite sure why Microsoft has it, if I'm honest. And the team member license. So this is the person who kind of sees but doesn't do really. These are kind of the people who are kind of on the fringes of your accounting system, wanting to have access to read, but not actually necessarily be your accountants. You then add on the packs. So these are the packs, and this is the kind of information that's included within it. So you need to pick, and most partner organizations will need these 3 packs: starter, purchase, and sales. These cover off the basics. For some of the more sophisticated partners, you may want to use things like jobs, where you're actually managing the jobs that you're doing and some of the timesheets. You may also have stock, depending on, again, on the type of partner you are. If you're selling hardware, for example, or if you're, as part of being an Ingram partner, you are shipping items out that you install software on, for example. And there are a number of other packs here. Again, this is like Lego bricks. Some of these packs are interchangeable, or sorry, interlinked. So anything that's got a plus on it, you basically need to have bought the one beforehand. It actually, as it says in here, in effect, requires stock. So you can't have stock plus without stock. So it's very easy for you to understand which bits you need for you to help work out kind of roughly what the costs are for your business. As I said, there's an ongoing cost with regards to the support of your solution. And there's a small nominal charge that we will work through with you with regards to the integration into the cloud marketplace. Again, a part of that is dependent on how big you are and the volume of transactions that you're putting through the cloud marketplace. And it's really just about helping and make sure that we provide adequate support to you. So you can very quickly work out kind of which packs you need, how much it's going to cost, and the support type of service that you require. Again, it's heavily discounted with regards to the relation, because of the relationship we have with Ingram, and because Ingram have very kindly put their hands in the pockets to help support this, to really help you as organizations grasp Business Central as a platform, to understand it, to be able to use it, and to be able to use it not just in a demonstration environment, but actually to support how your business operates and really see the changes and impact it can have right from the offset. So thank you very much indeed. I am pretty much bang on time. If you've got any queries, if you want to contact me, that's my email address, or you can contact your Ingram account person, who will, I'm sure, redirect them to me or a wider part of our team. We've got a team in the US, who some of you may be familiar with. I've seen some familiar names on the call, and obviously got a team in the UK, and we're kind of starting to roll out in the UAE as well as we speak. So thank you very much, Matt, and I shall hand back to you.
Thanks, Rob. So yeah, I think straight hand over to Mr. King when you're ready.
All right, let me switch here and present my screen. Give me one sec. All right, all the chat has to go away. Hold on, let me clean up the screen here. There we go.
There you go.
All right. Well, good. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Well done. So as Ed and Scott referred to or talked about earlier, there are a lot of business challenges out there that your customers are facing. So as Rob kind of described us, if Rob's organization offers very standard packages of Business Central, we're over here kind of doing some yoga and Pilates on the side a little bit, as Ed and Scott and Michael can attest to if they've been in sessions with us in Discovery. So for your customers that have significant business challenges, I'm going to cover 2 key vertical industries that, ironically, in COVID, have been pretty challenging for everybody. And I'll get into kind of some of the details as to why. Just a little bit about us. So we're primarily Toronto-based, have resources over in the Philippines as well as in the US. Our focus is mainly North America. We are a Gold Microsoft partner, and for those of you that want the secret decoder ring to the PCI scoring on the new small and mid-market cloud solution provider attainment, let me know, and we're happy to help you guys kind of figure that out. But we specialize in Business Central, as well as Dynamics 365 customer engagement and Office 365, and you'll see why that becomes a little bit critical as I explain these vertical solutions. So, want to talk about today, like I said, distribution and manufacturing. Quite frankly, organizations have been faced with unprecedented challenges in supply chain cost, commodity pricing, et cetera. So there's been a ton of business disruptors in these 2 industries in particular throughout the world. And as Ed and Scott kind of talked about, you don't want to approach the situation with here's all the great technology. you can go deploy from Microsoft, because there has to be a reason as to why we're looking at these technology solutions to solve these business problems. So you kind of got to flip the approach on its head. It's not a technology conversation, it's a business conversation, so to speak. So organizations, our customers, your customers, a lot of Ingram partner customers that we've been helping out with have just had tremendous challenges in this space. So they've had to change, right? So let's talk about distribution first, okay? Huge supply chain uncertainty out there. Vendors who were once reliable are not anymore. They're not consistent. They don't provide visibility across their own supply chain. We had a customer yesterday who everything was on schedule, and they talked to the vendor, of which they talked to them every day, and suddenly things were 2 weeks behind. So things are changing rather dramatically, but yet customers need to get things, ASAP. Everybody wants everything right now has quite frankly not changed at all. And one of the issues, especially in distribution, and we're seeing this in manufacturers as well, is that quite frankly, the cost and the consistency with respect to shipments from overseas has changed dramatically. Much more expensive, less capacity, more constraints, things just operating slower because of COVID, et cetera. So big challenges there. Costs, as I mentioned, are fluctuating tremendously. If you look at wood, metal, especially, just crazy fluctuations in cost. And from a technology platform standpoint, e-commerce sales channels have become even more important. Obviously Amazon is thriving. All of us, or many of us, get things delivered at home, et cetera. So those channels of electronically delivering customer orders or receiving customer orders and delivering products quite readily and quickly has been a huge shift across multiple industries. And because of that, also how customers run their warehouses, both from an efficiency standpoint, inventory accuracy. These were all things that customers could have lived with in the world before COVID, but now are really significant challenges in keeping up with the competition and delivering to customers on time. In addition, visibility to what the sales pipeline looks like. I know a lot of you partners are doing CRM as well as looking to get into Business Central, and so the ability to have a robust CRM system, have visibility into your sales funnel is critical at this stage, so you understand how to ramp up resources and deliver to your customers. Also, customers are expecting almost real-time communication. Vendors need to be connected through the supply chain so your customers have visibility to what's happening, and cash is king, right? So managing cash flow, extending payment terms, visibility to cash flow is critical these days. And finally, instant access to information. We talked earlier in this session about reports availability, kind of out of the box. I'll talk about that here in a minute, but our clients are requiring, our collective clients are requiring almost instant access to information. They don't want to wait to get reports and things like that. So how do we solve this from a dynamics perspective? And when we look at supply chain uncertainty, quite honestly, in-transit inventory visibility from overseas, vendor scoring, vendor quality, what POs are open, what are my commitments, et cetera, is critical. With respect to customs, duty, fluctuating costs, we saw over the past few years, customs regulations changing like crazy, tax, tariffs, et cetera, just changing almost, it seemed on a whim sometimes. But so managing landed costs, taking those landed costs into my gross margin calculations is critical as well. And these are all things that Business Central does quite well out of the box. E-commerce integration to things like Shopify, WooCommerce, Sana, K-e-commerce. E-commerce has become critical, so having those plugins available right out of the box, and there are all apps for these in the App Store. Internal warehouse efficiency with barcode scanning, things like that. Using CRM, so getting CRM or Dynamics 365 customer engagement to talk to Business Central, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like here in a second, is critical. So that's one of the reasons that customers are looking to the Microsoft ecosphere. Ed talked about Teams and that Outlook integration to Business Central. That's obviously critical, but also there's a customer engagement play here and how that talks to Business Central quite seamlessly. EDI, so communication with customers and vendors, electronic data interchange. We've seen a huge influx of customers wanting EDI. And again, I mentioned cash flow management. Cash is absolutely king these days as customers try to basically conserve cash, right? Also, like I said, reporting is critical. We actually provide about 80 plus, almost 100 out-of-the-box Jet reports with our solution. Jet Reports is a third-party add-on reporting solution out of Excel, and we actually took their entire library of reports and configured those with Business Central. So we sell that as well to your clients right out of the box. This flow chart is, and I'm not going to go into depth. I'm happy to send this out later, or feel free to take a screenshot. There's also a webinar on our YouTube channel about this, but this is the native integration on how Business Central communicates with Dynamics 365 customer engagement, as well as the Business Productivity Suite from Microsoft. So all the Office 365, Microsoft 365 stuff. So just like Ed talked about Business Central, I'm quoting and Outlook, etc. We all know, for CRM, tracking activities, things like that. But at the end of the day, what also exists are these native integration points between products and price lists, customer integration between these two systems, my sales process. When I quote and place an order, it comes down here into Business Central. I invoice, and that invoice visibility and customer revenue is visible up in customer engagement as well. So that's why it's critical when we talk about these business challenges, whether it be in distribution, manufacturing, or quite honestly, any industry, it's critical we understand this entire ecosystem. And that's why when you're up against the likes of an SAP, Epicor, NetSuite, customer trying to stay on QuickBooks, etc., this story about how Teams integrates and SharePoint and Flow and OneNote and Power BI and Outlook and all these things, this is what differentiates the Microsoft story. So I know a lot of you have specialties in these various areas, but this entire story is really what brings it together from a differentiation standpoint with the Microsoft ecosphere. So it's critical to understand how these things work together. Like we said, Ed kind of showed you a little bit of insight there, but really understanding how these systems work together. And like I said, I've got a good webinar on this entire flow that I'm happy to share. But that's what really sells this to customers. Your customers are already probably using Office 365. Maybe they're using customer engagement, and now a seamless integration to the back-end ERP is just, icing on the cake, so to speak. So this is a critical selling point and a big differentiator against competitors when you're facing them. Now, we also have standard offerings. So this is our distribution offering. I'm not going to go into depth, but the other thing that customers are looking for today, especially your customers, is fixed outcomes, fixed deliverables. Now, all those challenges I mentioned, you're not going to walk into a client day one and sell them every single thing to solve every problem under the sun. But at the end of the day, it lays the groundwork for understanding what all their challenges are, and then a roadmap to fix those problems over time and bring forth different technology solutions along the way. So just like others, we have standard offerings, we have standard pricing, and this also then gives your clients confidence that at least they understand their starting point. Projects don't drag on for 2 years. They're more like a couple of months, 2-3 months, etc. But we also pivot based on our customers' unique requirements. So we have a lot of little add-ons and apps and things like that we add to round out our solution for distribution. So similar to distribution, manufacturing has faced unprecedented challenges in the past couple of years. So as I mentioned, it basically has all the challenges we just talked about with the distribution industry, but in addition has some other things that cause them even more angst. So if your clients are manufacturers, number one, just a clarification, the premium version of Business Central is specifically for manufacturers. So it contains production orders, advanced MRP, things like that. It's also for service management. And you will see service management play in if you have, especially manufacturing, engineer to order, large equipment manufacturers who provide after sale or aftermarket service for their products. So there's definitely a home for service and manufacturing out there. It is a bit unique and it's a bit of a heavy lift, but quite honestly, that's what we're here for, is to help you guys out. So if you have clients in manufacturing, Business Central, as Nav did back in the day, have some really great capabilities to bring to bear. So like I said, One of the big challenges, especially when you talk about wood and metal these days, there are other commodities too, prices have just been going through the roof. We've had clients who it got so bad, they were selling their products at a loss and had to figure out their way around that. So a deep understanding of your costs is critical, and we find a lot of people who are doing manufacturing on Excel and planning inventory on Excel, like it just doesn't cut the mustard anymore. And the other thing that's happening in the industry is that the costs are fluctuating almost daily. Even clients that have contracts with vendors are breaking the contracts and just going almost ad hoc with their prices. So it's a bit crazy. And if the raw material costs aren't going crazy, then the freight costs to get them to you are going crazy. So a lot of challenges there. Availability of inventory, it's sort of customers climbing all over each other trying to get what inventory is out there, and capacity constraints. I talked about shipping constraints earlier. This is also capacity constraints because manufacturers of products that your manufacturing clients use, they've got their same supply chain challenges. We have found a ton of customers who have been behind the curve on digital transformation, who have not gotten into automated material requirements planning or MRP. It's absolutely critical that your clients don't have human beings manipulating Excel spreadsheets because they just can't do it quick enough. So implementing a system that can actually plan inventory based on future requirements, forecast, and supply chain challenges is critical. Also, quite simply, managing back orders. So customers aren't able to fill all their orders. So the simple act of purchasing, having those purchases or those make items that they have, filling those backlogs as quickly as possible is critical. And so these are all things we've seen from a manufacturing industry challenge over the past couple of years. So from a technology standpoint in Business Central, quite honestly, right out of the box, production order costing, whether it be first in, first out, or average, the system's updating live, visibility to landed cost, like I talked about with the distribution.
Did we lose the screen here real quick?
Oh, no. Did we? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's no problem. It just happened here.
Somebody else started sharing. Sorry.
Yeah, you gotta take it back over.
I am on it. All right, where did I leave off? Here? Hang on, let me share again. Is it sharing now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, yep. Cool. Let me advance. Here we go. So also because of all these challenges in manufacturing, production schedules are changing frequently. So there's visual production scheduling. There's an add-on from Nektronics over in Europe that's pretty good for visual scheduling in manufacturing. That's a nice extension to Business Central. Inventory planning, so planning worksheets in Business Central, MRP, automates that process. And also backorder management. So we've got in our industry solution for manufacturing an automatic backorder allocation system. And we even have clients who set priorities of different customers that they should get allocated those backorders before others. And that's kind of how crazy it's gotten in the manufacturing and distribution industries. Customers are actually setting priorities for sending goods to other customers in advance of others. So they're sort of sacrificing one customer for the other by level of importance. And again, just like distribution, we have a standard solution for manufacturing. It's a bit of a bigger lift than standard distribution. It takes a little more time and costs a bit more, as you can see. But manufacturing inherently is more complex anyway than just buying and shipping stuff, so to speak. And like I mentioned earlier, you're not going to go bite off all this stuff necessarily in a first phase for a customer, but you definitely want to have a vision for how you're going to solve all their operational challenges over time. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest challenges that clients have is reporting. And let's be honest, some of the reporting in Business Central isn't that great. There's still some hangover from the NAV days on little PDFs and things like that. So Jet Reports has been an add-on for a long time for NAV, and we kind of adopted it for Business Central. And things like P&Ls, cash flow, production order costing and completion, open POs, AR summaries, inventory by quantity on hand, and cost by location. These are all critical both in manufacturing and distribution. And so we sell with every deployment basically a catalog of reports so that clients hit the ground running. Also, Power BI is pretty popular these days too for more dashboardy, mobile-enabled type reports that say they look a bit more flashy than the traditional jet report. So we also have content packs, whether it be if you're in distribution, basic financials, or manufacturing, different content packs we also sell with Power BI. And there's a place for each, whether it be jet or Power BI. So wanted to convey to you that if you have customers in these industries, we as an Ingram Elite service provider can help your customers solve those issues. And as our friends here at Ingram have already alluded to, there's quite a bit of money to be made on your side of things from a licensing standpoint, as well as professional services. So that's all I got for today. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Andrew. Has anyone got any questions? Has anything come in the chat, particular for Andrew and what he's just presented? Anyone has anything? Feel free to drop those in. But what I will do, I will just a compliment. That's all you need, Andrew. Just a compliment for Mr. Wolf. What I'll say then is we'll hand back over to Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Matt.
No problem.
How long do you want me to go, by the way? Because I realise that I think we're overrunning quite a long way, so I can kind of.
To be honest, so we've got 25 minutes to go. Obviously, we're going to do a bit of a roundtable discussion. We'll see how many questions start to come in, but feel free to take as long as you need to be. I think we said like 15-20 minutes, didn't we? So feel free to take that time, because there's not been a lot of questions that haven't already been answered as part of the chat anyway. So I'll hand over to you.
Cool. Just give me 1 second.
No problem.
The screen coming through.
Yep, that's coming through. I can see you. There we go.
So, this is a very different session to the one that Andrew's given. Andrew has done a great example and a great session that really details the problems that your customers as partners are having. They're very real problems. We see them all the time, day to day, and kind of rather than trying to emulate or do the same thing as Andrew, I thought I'd take a different direction, which was to really talk about the existing platforms that those organizations are using and the issues that they're going to see. And I think I'm going to talk about dinosaurs and pandas, basically. Our approach is very different. And as I mentioned at the top of the call, our approach is around minimum viable product. Our approach is around baked in and using the investments that Microsoft has made in Business Central to really turn it into a world-beating platform. And I think what we're also seeing now is that there's a huge number of dinosaur platforms out there. These are platforms that have been around for many, many years. Many of them have been built on legacy technology, things like Fox Pro and Access and all sorts of classic on-premise pieces of technology. Many have been kind of force-fed through some sort of machine which has turned that legacy database maybe into a SQL database. But broadly speaking, that was kind of not really lifting them to where they needed to be. It was kind of a mid-term facelift, for want of a better word. And a lot of those dinosaurs also create a lot of other problems for their customers. And it's not necessarily down to the functionality of those products necessarily. They can still process an order. They can still collect cash. They can still kind of run their business from an accounting perspective. But actually, when we start to look at some of these pieces of technology, and there's a number of pieces here, and I'm not going to include Xero as a dinosaur, but it does have an issue from size perspective. What we tend to see is that many of these organizations, the accounting piece is the bit that kind of gets them by. We talk to a lot of organizations, and the reason they haven't moved, and I'm sure Andrew will attest to the same thing, is putting a new accounting platform in it's hard, to be honest. It's like doing open heart surgery on your business. You want to be really careful. And also, not only that, it's not something you tend to buy very often. So what you tend to see is organizations who kind of left it ticking over in the background, kind of thinking, well, it sort of works, and it's quite hard to fix. If I look in my shed, I've got loads of things like that, but I wouldn't run my business on any of them. And I think this is part and parcel of the issue that many SMBs face and have faced significantly over the last couple of months. Andrew went through a lot of the detail that COVID has brought up, the pressure that it's had on cash, the pressure that it's had on optimizing the way that businesses work, and that whole process that COVID has brought about has really changed the way that those SMBs operate, the way that they have to move into a world where they can work from anywhere. In fact, sometimes when I look at some of the most surprising things that mean why people have shifted from platforms like Sage 50 particularly, and even things like QuickBooks, it's things like reporting. It's things that are not actually relating to the underlying accountancy piece. Yeah, they can get a balance sheet and a profit and loss. They can see and do the accounting functions that they were taught at school, college, and when they did their professional exams. That's not the part and the reason why they're buying into this new technology. It's not the reason why they've had an awful lot of pain during that COVID period. Fundamentally, it comes down to bigger issues. It comes down to the way that technology has accelerated, the way that COVID has further accelerated that need to be able to work from anywhere, for example, to be able to have good visibility on your data, to be able to see and be able to report, to be able to leverage the tools that you're already familiar with, like Excel and Power BI, and very quickly be able to see what on earth is happening in your business. So that piece is actually not fundamentally down to the accounting function of these platforms. They do that fine, and I don't think, and to be honest, to a certain extent, they have to, because it's a legal and fiscally binding platform in many circumstances. It has to do things in a certain way. It can't do it a different way, and that's just because that's what accounting is about. It's the bits that enable, it's the bits that allow those organizations to grow, to transform, and to really hit those pain points that they've had, particularly through COVID. And I can kind of list those off as a couple of key ones. One, reporting. Many organizations, if they haven't grown significantly through COVID, they've had, because they sell PPE or whatever it is, they've done really well. But for many, they've really been put under pressure. Not being able to tell the bank how much cash is going to come in and who your bad debts are and how quickly and what your cash flow position looks like. And I even include partners in that world. You know, if I look at some of the issues we have around trying to understand what the impact of subscription and consumption billing in, that's quite hard. You know, unless you've got a piece of technology in place to be able to support that, that makes it very difficult to kind of understand, well, you know, what's actually going to come through the door next week. And this is where Business Central really comes into the fore, and where that reporting piece is key, being able to have visibility into your business and understand what's happening and do the what ifs, and do it very easily and very quickly, and also to have people who aren't experts, who aren't super techie, be able to do a lot of that. The other thing is things like reliability. Now, I'll be very careful about the way that I talk about this in case somebody gets upset about it, but the vast number of people that we talk to who use Sage 50 used to really like it, and it's fair to say that it had a very strong customer base. The vast majority of people we now speak to are really kind of a bit upset with how it's working, or rather not working. Many of them have issues with being able to access it remotely. Many of them have to use things like terminal services or remote desktop to access it, which itself is often plagued with issues and significant additional cost. Many of them also have performance issues with regards to scale. So as they get bigger, things like Sage 50 very quickly, for want of a better word, fill up. They get to a point where you've either got to archive them constantly, or the databases get corrupted and have to be restored. Now, these aren't really kind of like accounting issues as such. This is performance issues. It's performance, it's reliability, it's being able to access it from anywhere easily without having to have a whole layer cake of other technologies sat on top of it. The other part that comes into, actually, which again is not a piece of feature function necessarily of Business Central, is security. The security aspect of this is key. And I think when we start to talk to most organizations, and SMBs have been arguably much more widely hit and arguably far less well protected than enterprises by phishing attacks and all sorts of additional internet scams with regards to particularly things like asking them to redirect payments or changing address details or changing banking details. And in those scenarios, also having your system on basically some kind of old server that sat under somebody's desk that is in an office that historically kind of worked all right because everybody sat in the office, so it didn't matter, and somebody could back it up every day and they could take the tapes home in their bag or put them in the company safe. couple of things come into play. One, COVID's changed that world completely. People don't go into the office anymore, so you're not going to go in and back it up there. People don't also really want to have to put that into kind of some third-party hosting solution where, again, some of those issues still transpire with regards to using pieces of technology to access that data. But the other part of that is it creates this, not only this access layer of technology that's needed to get into it, but it also creates this kind of want and need to have to wrap it up with another whole security layer that sits around it as well. Things like Active Directory and single sign-on don't work with many of these tools. You have to go and basically log out of Microsoft stuff or move out from Microsoft and go log into their solution. Different usernames, different passwords, different opportunities to be hacked, different opportunities to be targeted from a malicious perspective. Different models that those people who are using those tools have to now remember with regards to how they can access that data. So when you look at reporting and then you look at security, these aren't really actually accounting issues. They're just issues with technology not really keeping up. Now, I did put Xero on this slide, and I thought it was worth just kind of mentioning this as a platform. Actually, we really like Xero. It's a really good product. What it does do and what it has got is a very, very hard ceiling with regards to its use. That old world or small world parts, it's a small world solution. It's very good at what it does. But many organizations are using it way beyond its actual capabilities. And in many scenarios, the way that Xero works, for those of you who aren't familiar with, and it's quite common with other solutions that are in the marketplace as well at that kind of level, you kind of keep adding on little bits to it from various marketplaces. I think it's fair to say that some of those marketplaces, without any naming any names, are a little bit like the Wild West. There's an awful lot of people just throwing up apps on there that basically have been built in somebody's bedroom and don't really have the level of granularity, level of governance and security built into them. One of the pains, for want of a better word, with AppSource is it's quite rigorous to get on there. You can't just decide to build an app and throw it on into Microsoft's AppSource. You can't put it into their marketplace without going through a fairly stringent process to get that there. And that keeps the quality control in place. And actually, that's why Microsoft does it. What you get with a lot of the smaller solutions is you have that kind of smaller app infrastructure, but you don't necessarily have the control, and you end up having to buy multiple applications to build your solution out. And it becomes a component set of lots and lots of little bits that aren't necessarily well governed or controlled and are often developed by people who don't follow necessarily the same structures. So Xero itself, as I said, very good product, but you do tend to see a lot of people who stretch it. It also is slightly limited with regards to how you can build security into it. You certainly wouldn't want your staff seeing your director's wages, for example. And again, if you're a smaller company and there's only one of you, then that doesn't matter. But in a Xero world, those kind of things really start to have an impact. And it wouldn't be a Microsoft presentation without a quote from Satya. Sorry, Ed, and Ingram, actually. I think one of the other big parts of this is Microsoft is just winding the wheel up. That whole ecosystem of solutions that Microsoft has already got in the customers, for those of you who are Office 365 partners, people have got, if they haven't got Office 365, they should be getting it. And if they haven't got it and they aren't going to get it, then you've got to ask some interesting questions about where they are from a technology standpoint. If you then start to look at where Microsoft's making its investments, and the investments that are really going to impact those SMB customers, and we're talking about the smaller customers, so we're talking about the ones that have multiple hats. They don't have huge teams that just do one job. We're talking about the person who kind of sings the theme tune, plays the theme tune, processes the orders, and sweeps the office at the end of the day. Things like AI, machine learning, and cognitive services are pieces of technology that, for want of a better word, are not going to be in the remit of a lot of those traditional ERP vendors. They're not the kind of thing that they can really develop. They're the kind of thing that Microsoft develops, because Microsoft's got things like Skype, Xbox. It's got the scale as a global hyperscale cloud provider. It's got the scale to build those pieces of technology and to embed them not only in Dynamics, but also in the Microsoft tool set and make them all sing together in harmony. If you look at the kind of components that then you think, well, how's Sage going to address that? They can't. They have to go and use somebody else's tools. And actually, to be honest, it's kind of outside of their wheelhouse to a certain extent. And this, I think, is where you see this fundamental shift in the way that these pieces of technology will help an SMB business. It's not about just doing the kind of basics from an accounting perspective anymore. It's actually about how they can fundamentally change their business and use things like AI and machine learning that Microsoft has democratized, so made available to them, as part, and you've seen the demonstrations that Ed has provided and the conversations that Andrew's talked about, it's a much wider conversation. It's the stack, it's the whole Microsoft platform of solutions working together and delivering value across the board. So I was going to go through another bit, but I'm actually not going to, because I'm very conscious that I've already talked for probably slightly longer than I should. So if you all bear with me 1 minute, I will do a little bit of Blue Peter and take out some pandas and move on. So this is the approach that we take. And I think we talked about this on the approach piece for the session around the IUR piece. The kind of conversation that we have really is around MVP. Many of these organizations are SMB, and this is, again, the different approach to ours and the way that Andrew and Websam do an excellent job for those customers that need that yoga and Pilates. I've not heard it described as that before, but that's an excellent example. We're very much around the kind of, do you know what? Microsoft spent a lot of money making this do what it's supposed to do. This is best practice. If you don't need to do the yoga and Pilates, then this works really well. And it allows us to build this solution very quickly. I think the other part of this is that when we start to look at that MVP approach and that building it out, many people, we talk about it about moving into a house. You don't really know what you need and where everything is and what issues until you've actually lived in it for a while. So let's get in, start using it, and then decide kind of, actually, do you know what? I don't mind that decoration. I can deal with that. Actually, I really want to go fix this thing first, because actually that's more important to me. And I'll do those things later on rather than trying to do the whole thing in one go. It's very useful for SMBs. The other part of that is that those small organizations, many of them haven't bought a solution like this for, if not 5 years, maybe 10 years. They don't really know what they know. They know what's hurting. They don't necessarily know how to fix it. So actually coming with our approach is well, actually this is how you do it. It's a different question for what would you like. This is what you're going to get. And it's built on very solid reasons as to why we're doing it like this. It's not for everybody, but it gives them an alternative approach. So when I kind of get into summarize, it's what we see from all of these customers. The kind of questions and processes that we see, and the things and the queries that we see, and the questions that we ask, and our partners who work through the Ingram Marketplace ask, is things like these. These are the things that are going to have an impact on where it's going to help. You know, do you want a modern system? Is reporting not helping? Have you outgrown it? Do you want everything Microsoft? Do your systems talk to each other? Do you have too many manual processes? These are the kind of questions that concern and really help kind of reiterate, really, from a business perspective. It's about how to talk to the business as opposed to how to necessarily talk to IT, and understanding what that impact is on those organizations. I showed it earlier. All of this is on our website. So as you can see the way that we can price it. There is actually some really cool videos. I mean, I would say that, but they are quite cool. We've got a lot of pandas. We've got a lot of really quite good, solid advice on how to deploy, how to look at it, how to build it out, what the impact is. We've got customer reference and customer case studies on here of people who have moved, and also what our implementation actually looks like on the ground. I know I've talked a lot about Microsoft, about fixed price, fixed outcome, but actually in many scenarios, there is flexibility in here. This isn't kind of one size fits all, but it's about using the structures and the templates and staying within the lines that Microsoft have created within the product. So Matt, I'm going to finish there very quickly. Thank you very much indeed. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Rob. That's great. So yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't got as long as we thought we might have done for a bit of a discussion topic, but there has questions actually just come in, Rob. I will just answer the one around the recording. So it goes into the same website that you registered for on. I'll drop it into the chat again, and then we also drop them into our business application partner teams community as well. But Rob or Andrew or whoever wants to have a look at the question that came in before that, while I'm getting the link, that'd be great.
In addition to Business Central, do I need Dynamics 365 Finance as well to handle the transactional piece, to handle e-commerce? In short, no. Oh, in fact, I'll let Andrew basically done my job or done the same.
Sorry,
thing.
Rob, I jumped in there.
No, that's fine. Yeah, Andrew's very correct. Basically, lots of different options to it. A lot of it is going to depend on scale and size and how complex they want it to be. But yeah, you don't need Dynamics 365 Finance at all. That's a whole different painful kettle of fish to get into, or not painful actually, lucrative and complex.
Different price point altogether, let's say. Yes.
Yeah, it's basically add zero or move the decimal point back.
Couple zeros, yeah, a few.
Yeah.
Factor of 10 will do it.
Yeah.
I think seeing it as there's not many questions coming in, and we've got a bit of time, so I think I'll interview. Now I've got just it'd be really interesting. Rob going very wide-eyed there. No, I think it'd be really interesting just to get from a partner's perspective. So Andrew, Rob, what you're seeing from a Business Central standpoint, and the impact that COVID's had over the past, well, it's over 12 months now, and what you've kind of seen in the market. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, do you want to go first, Andrew, or do you want me to?
Go for it. Yeah, you go for it, man.
So we've seen a couple of things that come to the fore. I think I touched on some of them. Security is becoming a big issue because people are kind of, and that ability to work from anywhere. I mean, it kind of seems, I mean, I suppose we all work in IT, so it seems ridiculous that you can't work from anywhere and you can't access everything just from your PC, like sat in a cafe or sat at home. But a huge number of SMBs can't, and even now still can't. They're still wedded to things like remote desktop and all the cost and kind of multi-layering of pieces of technology that need to have all working in tandem. And generally, they're not looked after by, their IT person in those businesses is usually an accidental tourist. They're not the person, they're not IT, like the IT departments of bigger companies that kind of know it all. They have to then go and rely on their IT provider, and there might be a time delay. Forecasting and reporting has become a big issue. A lot of SMBs are now having to report to the bank or report to somebody who's put some money in, who basically wants to know, not at the end of the month, oh, there's money left in the bank. Yeah, cool, we've made some money this month. They want to know, actually, what's cash flow look like? Are you going to get to the end of the month? I think there's been quite a lot of people who have used the time, and actually interesting when we look at our pipeline, who've used the time to reflect on their own businesses, be they partners or end customers, and taken it as a bit of a break and sort of said, actually, if we're going to be quiet during this period, this is where we go fix the roof. If the business is still running, this is where I investigate. Our website has been hammered. We've seen the volume of leads and inquiries through COVID went through the roof. After a bit of a delay when everybody kind of went, oh my word, what's everybody going to do? Then everybody sort of sat down and went, right, we've got to fix this. A lot of people also then haven't fixed it fully. They've kind of gone, now we know what we want to do. But like everybody else, like even me, nobody's really started to, well, they have now in the UK, but everybody's kind of gone, right, as soon as it comes out, I'm going to go buy that thing, be it a new pair of trainers or a new car or a new house or whatever. It's like, I've got all this cash, I've not been on holiday, I'm now going to spend that money. And I think that's where we've now seen, our pipeline is much shorter timelines than Andrew's. People make a decision to go with us in less than a month in most scenarios. They either like it or they're on the highway. We've had deals closed that have been in 400 days in our pipe because people who wanted to do it kept going and kind of went, yeah, we are going to do it. We just need confidence back. A lot of SMB, the money they have in their business is what pays their own salary. Then it's the money they're going to pay their staff with. Yeah. They're not corporates who have ring-fenced the budget and said, we're going to spend this on our new ERP system, kind of almost regardless. It's like, well, actually, I've got to pay the wage bill at the end of this month. Yeah, we're not doing that. We'll do it next month or the next month or the next month. Anyway, loads of impact. I'll let Andrew.
Yeah, I think, well, like you, Rob, I mean, we've seen a huge influx of prospects. We generally average between 1 and 2 a day. Now it's almost 3 or 4 a day. It's absolutely insane. So we're struggling even to keep up from an implementation standpoint. But we have noticed that customers' willingness to change has improved. I guess I'll use the term improved dramatically. Before COVID, a business owner would come to us and say, this is how I want to do it. I've got all these customizations in whatever system I'm coming from. This is how I have to do it. And now they're looking at all the efficiencies built into a product like Business Central, or how it integrates to customer engagement, or how it works with Office. And they're much more willing to change their business to what we call best practice, if you will. So we've noticed a much increased appetite for change. probably driven by the need to accelerate deployments, get new technology in place because they're behind the 8 ball, realizing that they haven't been, in my examples before, planning inventory in an automated way. There's one individual who built the Excel spreadsheet 15 years ago, and they're still the one person that knows how to do it, and they don't want to lose that person, or they're worried about their business continuity, right? So like you, we've noticed a definite acceleration in the sales process for sure, definitely acceleration in clients wanting their projects to start and finish sooner than we could probably ever pull off anyway. So yeah, it's that I want it now little logo I threw on there. I mean, it's gone nuts lately. So
yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you. I think that's kind of all we've got time for as far as a discussion. So it wasn't much of a discussion, but I'm glad I got that questioning because I think that's one that we get quite a bit. So it's just interesting to get your side of things on what we're seeing in the market. I'll just close out by saying a huge thank you to Rob, to Andrew, to Scott, to Ed. Also, Craig, I did see you pop up in the chat box answering some questions. So thank you very much for being here from Microsoft. Always a pleasure having you on as well. Even as a mysterious background person, you're extremely useful. We'll just say, keep in mind, everyone, that we've got the next workshop as well. The Dynamics 365 sales focused workshop, again following this kind of trend of SMB, so there'll be some talk of Business Central in that one, I'm sure, as well, and also the Better Together story with M365. So that's coming up the 3rd Wednesday of the month in June. I think it's the 16th off the top of my head. I'm not looking at a calendar. So I think you're all on the invite for that, the way we've set this up. If not, make sure you register and keep an eye out as well, because we've already got plans to do another Power Platform workshop as we head into August. So lots and lots of stuff going on. So yeah, huge thank you to everyone. I'm going to stop recording now, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day, evening, good night.